Hi, Redeemer. For this week's FAQ, I'm going to deal with the question, what parenting resources do you recommend? So a couple thoughts before I get on to resources. Number one, I'm really talking about young children here, really from birth and, let's say up to 5, 6, 7. Um, Things change after that. So that's number one. Number two, um, there's a philosophical or theological assumption here I'm carrying into these resources, which is that our children's flesh needs restrained, and particularly when they're young. Yes, we preach the gospel to them and we pray for the Spirit to move. But the younger they are, my philosophical assumption is that the flesh needs restrained a lot more. So we do a lot more law work when they're really young, and a lot more gospel work the older they are. And number three, I know that humans, children are all different, and so there's all kinds of different ways this can play out. We have temperament, we have personality, we have culture, we have what God's doing, and so that's true. And there are no formulas, but I want us to be careful not to use that truth and push it to the extent where we say there's no such thing as wisdom in relationships. There really is. There are wiser ways to deal with people, including young children. And so just want to lean into that. Number four, yeah, there are no formulas. What I'm talking about here and these resources I'm going to recommend are about setting a foundation for being able to have, to the best that you can, and God will provide, a context where there's a healthy degree of authority from the parents, submission from the children, and thereby creating a context within which God can do the real work. There is no approach to parenting that is going to guarantee anything. That your kids might not, you may parent, in biblically wise ways, and your kids could still end up on drugs. They may not end up saved. I am not talking about formulas for health here. I'm talking about how do we do our best under the sovereign will of God to parent these young children. So number one, resource that I would recommend for newborns and even before your kids are born to be reading and implementing is Preparation for Parenting. There's a shortened version called Baby Wise. And again, there's different people with different philosophical assumptions that would reject these resources. I'm just telling you what I have found helpful, what I have seen helpful in many families that I have interacted with. Preparation for Parenting is a resource that helps you think through, even early on, before they are walking and talking, what does it look like to establish a pattern of authority and provision for children, and managing sleep and eating and that kind of thing. Number two, this book is really zero gospel and really just about training the flesh. It's called To Train Up a Child, and it's really addressing the question how, even younger than we usually think, when they're 6 months, a year old, can we begin to proactively train them to listen to our voice and to obey certain commands and things like that. Again, this isn't saving them, but this is providing a context in which they are safe. They are trained to respond to the voice of authority, particularly their parents in their life, and just some basic approaches to, again, training the flesh. So that's To Train Up a Child. Third one is Shepherding a Child's Heart by Ted Tripp. And that's a lot more gospel. This is aiming at kids that you're able to have conversations with, right? 2, 3, 4, 5 years old. And what it looks like to discipline, yes, the flesh, but also with an aim toward the child's heart. And this starts to get into, right, how we talk to them. What we, this isn't just about spanking children, but about what are we speaking to them about their hearts? How are we leaning them toward God and dependence on Him in moments of discipline, and creating a culture where the gospel is starting to meet, right? The restraint of the flesh and that kind of thing. So that's a fantastic resource. Those would be my top three. You can get into other things like Show Them Grace, as kids get older, there's another book by Paul Tripp called just Parenting, and it's really big gospel principles. And a lot of these things are about battling tensions and wrestling with those things. The fact that kids aren't formulas, people aren't formulas. So there's that. Would love to hear what other resources you guys find useful. And again, big picture, pray and lean into God. I am a Christian. I'm a leader in the church, and it's not because anybody read or implemented these books when I was a child. And there's plenty of people who have, implemented, their Christian parenting approaches, and their kids are wayward now. So again, this is not about formulas, but let's not throw out the fact that there is wisdom that can be implemented, and then we submit all that to the leadership and authority of God, and trust Him ultimately with the hearts and fate of our children. So feel free to reach out if you have any more specific questions or follow up. Love you guys. See ya.